Christmas Eve should have sounded like laughter. Instead, Tera Morgan's phone buzzed with a single message that made the room around her feel suddenly colder. Dad, don't come for Christmas, loser. She stared at the screen, reading the words twice before her thumb drifted toward the family group chat. Before she could even decide whether to answer, another notification appeared. Her younger brother had already posted a screenshot. Guess Dad finally said what everyone was thinking. Laughing emojis filled the conversation. Her mother reacted with a smiling face instead of saying a single word in her defense. An aunt added, "Maybe next year she'll learn." No one asked if she was okay. No one questioned why their father would speak to his own daughter that way. Tera slowly inhaled, then typed one simple reply. Understood. She pressed send. There were no angry messages. No tears. No dramatic speech. She simply locked the conversation and opened an entirely different app. Her banking application. One after another, familiar account names appeared on her screen. Family mortgage. Cancel automatic payment. Home internet. Cancel. Cell phone family plan. Cancel. Home insurance. Cancel. Business software subscription. Cancel. Credit card autopay. Cancel. Vehicle insurance. Cancel. Utilities. Cancel. Every confirmation window asked the same question. Are you sure? For the first time in years. Tera answered yes. She never called her father back. She never defended herself. She never explained why. She simply placed her phone face down on the coffee table, poured herself a cup of tea, and watched the snow drift past her apartment window. Outside, neighbors carried wrapped presents into warm homes. Inside, silence settled over her apartment. Oddly, it felt peaceful. For years, every Christmas had ended with another demand. Another emergency. Another reminder that family comes first. Tonight there was only quiet. It wasn't until the next morning that the silence shattered. Her phone vibrated across the table. One missed call. Then another. 5. 11. 23. 40. The screen barely stopped lighting up long enough for her to read the names. Dad. Mom. Ryan. Dad again. Unknown number. Then the voicemail notification appeared. She expected shouting. Instead, Richard's voice came through tight and uneven. Tera, please answer. Something's gone terribly wrong. She didn't press call back. She simply looked at the growing list of notifications. By the time she finished her coffee, there were 63 unanswered calls. Only then did she begin to understand something she'd refused to admit for years. Those calls weren't about Christmas. They were about everything she had quietly been paying for. And none of them knew exactly how much. Tera let the phone keep vibrating. It crossed the kitchen counter again, buzzing so hard it nearly slipped onto the floor. She glanced at the screen without touching it. Dad calling. She muted it. 5 seconds later, it rang again. This time it was her mother. Then Ryan. Then her aunt. Then Richard again. She turned the phone upside down and walked to the window. Snow continued falling across the parking lot while children pulled sleds behind their parents. Somewhere nearby, Christmas music floated through the cold air. For the first time in years, she wasn't rushing to fix someone else's emergency. Instead, memories she'd spent years pushing away began surfacing one after another. It had started almost 6 years earlier. Richard had shown up at her apartment carrying a folder and wearing the worried expression she had always found impossible to resist. Tera, he'd sighed, rubbing both hands together. Business is just slow for a couple of months. She'd immediately invited him inside. What happened? Cash flow. He forced a tired smile. Nothing permanent. Your mother doesn't even know how tight things are. He slid several bills across her dining table. I just need someone dependable. She looked down. Mortgage. Electricity. Internet. Insurance. I can loan you some money. Richard shook his head. No, sweetheart. That'll only complicate taxes. Just put these on automatic payment for a month or two. Once business picks back up, I'll move everything back. A couple of months. I promise. She believed him. The first withdrawal barely registered. The second month felt temporary. By the sixth month, the payments had become routine. Whenever she mentioned moving them back, Richard always had another explanation. The client delayed payment. The economy's rough. Just a little longer. Every conversation ended exactly the same way. You know, family helps family. Then new expenses quietly appeared. One afternoon, Richard called again. I hate asking. What is it? Ryan's car insurance. She hesitated. I thought he had a job. He does, but he's trying to get ahead. Another pause. I don't want your brother falling behind because of one rough season. Tera sighed. I'll take care of it. That's my girl. Within another year, the family cell phone plan had migrated to her account. Then the streaming services. Then the homeowner's insurance. Then software subscriptions. Richard insisted his company couldn't operate without. Every request came wrapped in the same promise. Temporary. Temporary slowly became invisible. Nobody even mentioned the payments anymore. The money simply disappeared from her account every month, as if it belonged to someone else. What hurt wasn't the money. It was everything that happened while she quietly paid those bills. Every Thanksgiving. Every birthday. Every Christmas. Richard found some way to diminish her. He'd clap Ryan on the shoulder. My son's going places. Then he'd nod toward Tera. And this one. He'd chuckle. Still hasn't really figured life out. People laughed politely. Nobody knew she'd paid for the very house they were sitting inside. Nobody knew the lights stayed on because her checking account existed. She would force a smile. Carry another serving dish to the table. Pretend none of it mattered. One Christmas, an uncle asked Richard how he'd managed to keep the family so financially stable while everyone else was struggling. Richard didn't hesitate. I've always planned ahead. Everyone admired him. Someone even raised a toast. To Richard, the man who always takes care of his family. Glasses clinked around the room. Tera quietly looked down at her plate. Not one person realized the mortgage payment had left her account 3 days earlier. She said nothing. She never wanted credit. She only wanted respect. The text she received on Christmas Eve wasn't what broke her. It simply stripped away the last excuse she'd been making for them. She finally admitted something she had refused to believe. She hadn't been helping people who loved her. She had been financing people who needed her. Those were two very different things. Her phone buzzed again. Another voicemail appeared. Richard's voice was barely recognizable. Tera, please, answer, something's gone terribly wrong. She stared at the notification for several long seconds. Then she quietly whispered to the empty apartment. No, Dad. It didn't go wrong today. It went wrong years ago. Christmas morning usually began with Richard carving the turkey, while everyone argued over which movie to watch first. This year, silence hit before breakfast. The television flashed an error message. No internet connection. Ryan frowned. What? He picked up the remote and tried again. Nothing. His teenage daughter groaned. The Wi-Fi's dead. It's probably the router, Richard muttered. He walked over, unplugged it, counted to 10, plugged it back in. Still nothing. His wife reached for her phone. Our streaming account logged us out. Ryan laughed. Probably another password reset. Then his smile disappeared. It says, subscription canceled. Before anyone could make sense of it, Richard's phone rang. He answered confidently. Hello. The cheerful expression disappeared almost instantly. What do you mean the payment didn't process? He glanced toward the hallway so no one could hear. No, run it again. A pause. No, there must be a mistake. Another pause. His shoulders stiffened. I'll handle it. He hung up before anyone could ask. It's nothing. But his voice wasn't convincing anymore. Minutes later, another notification chimed. His wife's phone this time. She frowned. Richard. What? Our homeowner's insurance says the policy has been suspended until payment is received. Richard forced a smile. They send those automatically. She wasn't reassured. On Christmas, Ryan walked into the kitchen carrying his wallet. I'm running to the store. 10 minutes later, he came back looking pale. My card got declined. Richard frowned. What? I've got money. You probably hit the wrong pin. Ryan shook his head. It wasn't my account. He swallowed. It said the vehicle insurance connected to the account is inactive. The room suddenly became very quiet. Richard grabbed his coat. I'm going to the bank. His wife stood. On Christmas. I'll be back. He slammed the front door. The branch had limited holiday hours, but enough customers were inside to form a small line. Richard walked straight to the counter with practiced confidence. My banking app is showing several payment failures. The teller smiled politely. I'll take a look. She typed for several seconds. Then her expression changed. I'm sorry, sir. What? The automatic payment authorizations connected to these services were canceled yesterday. Canceled? Yes. By who? I'm afraid I can't disclose account information. Richard leaned closer. This is my household. The teller calmly replied. The authorizing account holder removed the recurring payments. People waiting nearby looked over. Richard lowered his voice. There has to be some mistake. There isn't. She turned the monitor slightly. Every cancellation was confirmed individually. He stared at the screen. Utilities. Internet. Insurance. Mortgage assistance. Business software. Everyone carried the same status. Canceled by account holder. His phone rang again before he even reached the parking lot. This time it was his accountant. Richard, where are you? At the bank. You need to get back immediately. What happened now? The payroll platform locked us out. Richard froze. What? The software license expired overnight. Impossible. The payment failed. Another notification appeared before the accountant finished speaking. Cloud storage. Payment unsuccessful. Then another. Business insurance. Coverage pending. Then another. Accounting software. Subscription inactive. Richard's breathing became uneven. He sped home far faster than he should have. The family met him in the living room. His wife folded her arms. So, it'll be fixed. Ryan didn't sound convinced. Then, why is your business calling every 5 minutes? Richard ignored him. Instead, he rushed upstairs. Everyone watched as he disappeared into his office. A moment later, drawers slammed open. File folders hit the floor. Papers scattered everywhere. What are you looking for? His wife shouted. No answer. Finally, Richard pulled out an aging gray folder, labeled *** automatic payment authorizations**. His hands trembled as he flipped page after page. Then, He stopped. Every authorization form, every recurring payment agreement, every banking instruction, every signature. The same name appeared at the bottom. Tera Morgan. Richard's face drained of color. For the first time, his wife quietly asked the question no one had ever thought to ask. Richard, why is every bill in our lives connected to Tera? Tera sat at her dining table with her laptop open. The phone had finally stopped ringing. Not because her family had given up, because they had started calling each other instead. She could almost picture it. Questions, arguments, blame. For years, Richard had controlled every conversation before anyone else could ask the obvious questions. Today, the questions had reached him first. She logged into her online banking. The payment history stretched back farther than she expected. Month after month, year after year. Mortgage assistance, utilities, internet, insurance, business subscriptions, vehicle insurance, family phone plan, streaming services, small charges, large charges, emergency transfers. She scrolled slowly. I really paid all this. She whispered it to herself, almost unable to believe the total. What had once seemed like just helping had become hundreds of transactions spread across years, each one attached to a promise Richard had never kept. Her email chimed. A new message had arrived. From Richard. There was no apology. Only one sentence. Restore the payments immediately. We'll discuss everything later. Tera stared at it, then quietly archived the email without responding. 5 minutes later, another arrived. This time from her mother. Your father is under a lot of pressure. Nothing about the Christmas text. Nothing about calling her a loser. Nothing about the years she'd carried their expenses. Only concern for Richard. Tera closed the message. She opened a folder she'd created months earlier. She hadn't built it out of revenge. She'd built it because, somewhere deep inside, she'd begun sensing she might someday need proof. Every recurring payment, every bank statement, every confirmation email, every invoice, every canceled check. Everything had been scanned and organized by year. She began reviewing them one final time. Dates, amounts, descriptions. Nothing emotional. Just facts. Then she noticed something she'd overlooked before. Several payments matched dates when Richard had proudly hosted large family gatherings. Expensive dinners, holiday parties, anniversary celebrations. The same weeks. Her own account had covered the mortgage and utilities because Richard hadn't. She leaned back in her chair. So that's how he did it. He hadn't been maintaining the family's lifestyle. He'd been borrowing hers. She opened another folder. Inside were screenshots from family group chats over the years. Richard joking about how Tera was still figuring life out. Relatives congratulating him for providing so well. Ryan laughing about how Tera never had real responsibilities. Every joke landed differently now. They weren't just insults. They had protected Richard's lie. If everyone believed Tera wasn't successful, nobody would ever wonder whose money was actually paying the bills. She created one email. The recipients included Richard, her mother, Ryan, Richard's accountant, the family's attorney. No emotional subject line. Simply, financial records regarding recurring household payments. She attached everything. Years of statements, payment confirmations, authorization forms, cancellation notices. Then she wrote only one sentence. These records accurately reflect every recurring payment made from my personal accounts over the past several years. Nothing else. No accusations. No insults. No explanation. She pressed *send ***. Less than an hour later, replies began arriving. The accountant requested additional copies. The attorney acknowledged receipt. Her mother asked, "Is all of this real?" Ryan sent only 3 words. "Dad lied." Richard never replied. Across town, the Morgan house had become painfully quiet. The dining table still held untouched Christmas food. Nobody wanted dessert anymore. Richard sat surrounded by open folders while his wife compared bank statements against the documents Tera had sent. Every page matched. Every signature belonged to Tera. Every payment came from her account. There was no missing piece left to explain. For years, Richard had accepted praise for sacrifices someone else had made. No one spoke. No one defended him. For the first time in decades, Richard wasn't controlling the room. He was trapped inside the truth he'd spent years hiding. At that exact moment, a sharp knock echoed through Tera's apartment. She walked quietly to the door, looked through the peephole. Her father, her mother, her brother, all stood silently in the hallway. None of them looked angry anymore. They looked desperate. Tera didn't unlock the door immediately. She looked through the peephole for nearly 30 seconds. Her father stood closest to the frame, shoulders slumped. Her mother avoided looking toward the apartment number. Ryan shifted awkwardly from one foot to the other, holding his jacket against the December wind. None of them looked like they had the night before. Yesterday they had laughed. Today they looked frightened. Tera unlocked the deadbolt, but left the security latch in place, opening the door only a few inches. "What do you want?" Richard stepped forward. "We need to talk." "I don't." "Tera." "No." Her calm answer surprised even her. "For years, every conversation ended with me agreeing to something. This one won't." Richard swallowed. "Please." She waited. He glanced behind him before lowering his voice. "Can we come inside?" "No." The hallway became painfully quiet. Neighbors' doors opened and closed farther down the corridor as families returned from Christmas lunches. Richard looked embarrassed. For perhaps the first time in his life, he had no control over the situation. Finally, he spoke. "You've made your point." Tera looked at him without expression. "My point. Restore the payments." "There it is." "What?" I wondered how long it would take before someone mentioned an apology. Nobody answered. Instead, her mother quietly said, "We're in trouble." Tera nodded once. "I know." Richard tried another approach. "I never meant for things to go this far." She almost laughed. "You sent me a message calling me a loser." I was angry. "You sent it to your daughter." Silence. "My brother posted it so everyone could laugh." Ryan stared at the floor. "I shouldn't have done that." "No. You shouldn't have." Another silence settled between them. Richard finally said the words he'd clearly been rehearsing. "I'll pay you back." Tera tilted her head. "With what?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. She already knew the answer. There wasn't enough money. There hadn't been enough money for years. She reached beside the door and picked up a thick binder. "I was hoping I wouldn't need this." Richard recognized it immediately. "The records. Copies." She held the binder where everyone could see it. "I reviewed every payment before I emailed them yesterday." Her mother whispered, "How much?" Tera opened the front page. "I stopped adding everything after the total crossed $400,000. Ryan looked up so quickly he nearly stumbled backward. "What?" She turned another page. "It includes the mortgage assistance." Another page. The utilities. Another. The business software. Another. The insurance. She looked directly at Richard. Every month you said you'd move them back. He couldn't meet her eyes. Her mother began crying quietly. I didn't know. Tera believed her. You weren't supposed to. Richard finally spoke. I was protecting everyone. No. Tera's voice remained steady. You were protecting yourself. He shook his head. The business was collapsing. I know. You know. I figured it out months ago. Richard frowned. Then why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to see whether you'd ever tell the truth. He never had. Ryan slowly sat down on the hallway floor, his back against the wall. You paid my insurance. Yes. The phone plan. Yes. The internet. Yes. The house. When your father couldn't. Ryan covered his face with both hands. I've been making jokes about you for years. You were repeating what you were told. He looked at Richard. You said she barely had enough money to support herself. Richard said nothing. You said she was irresponsible. Still nothing. You told us you were carrying her. The hallway fell completely silent. Richard finally looked at his daughter. I was ashamed. Of what? My business. You should have been. He flinched. But not because it failed. She took one slow breath. You should have been ashamed because you let everyone believe you were carrying me, while I was carrying all of you. No one argued. No one could. Weeks later, the consequences reached far beyond Christmas. Richard's accountant resigned after refusing to continue working around undisclosed personal liabilities. The family attorney advised Richard to separate every household expense from Tera immediately because there was no legal basis for expecting her to continue paying. The Morgans sold 2 vehicles. They canceled vacations. The house they had struggled to maintain was eventually listed for sale, and they moved into a smaller home they could actually afford. Several relatives stopped speaking to Richard after learning how long he had accepted praise for sacrifices that weren't his. Family gatherings became noticeably smaller. Not because Tera stayed away. Because the illusion that had held everyone together had disappeared. As for Tera, she never restored a single automatic payment. Instead, she redirected every dollar into her own future. She paid off the remaining balance on her condominium. She expanded her investment portfolio. She finally booked the Christmas trip she'd postponed for years because there was always another family emergency. For the first time in her adult life, December belonged entirely to her. No frantic phone calls. No unexpected bills. No guilt. Only peace. Nearly a year later, while organizing old photos on her phone, she found the screenshot again. *63 missed calls. She smiled gently before moving it into a folder labeled *freedom***. Not because she enjoyed watching her family struggle, but because that image reminded her of the day she finally understood something that changed her life forever. Love is freely given. Dependence is quietly demanded. For years, she had mistaken one for the other. Never again.